One chance, one life, one take. Little room for mistake. Who do you
Welcome to the Dead Funny Dead Series podcast. This is the new series 30 End of Life Doulas in 30 Days. My name is Mitzi Weiland. I'm your host for this series. Today, our End of Life Doula is Cindy Kaufman. She is the author of The Mortal's Guide to Dying Well, Practical Wisdom from an End of Life Doula. And her company is HeartSpeak, End of Life Companioning. And she has much, much more that she does, and she'll tell us that. Welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thank you so much, Mitzi. I appreciate being here today.
Of course. So we're going to just dive right in to this, and we're going to start with your why. If you can share a little bit about your decision to become an end-of-life doula.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So my why is a little lengthy in that my interest in working in the field of death and dying began with experiencing my grandmother's death when I was 29, and I got to spend the last 3 days at her bedside and was there for her final breath. And that was my first experience with death, and I found myself to be very comfortable sitting in that environment and sort of experienced some family members who weren't. And I didn't understand why they didn't want to join me in sitting bedside. And I now know that some people are comfortable and some people definitely are not with end of life. So coming away from that, I felt like my grandmother had given me a gift, sort of shown me this ability that I had. And at the age of 30 or 31, so about a year after my grandmother died, I sought out becoming a hospice volunteer. And most hospice volunteers are not that young. Typically, they're retired people who are looking for volunteer opportunities. So I was kind of an anomaly, I think. But I did the training and became a hospice volunteer, and just no matter what I was doing, career-wise, job-wise, over the next 20 years, I always was doing hospice volunteering because I just loved the work. And then a few years ago, I had a serious illness of my own, and that sort of prompted me to say, I don't really want to do something going forward in my life that I'm not passionate about. I don't want to spend time helping someone else develop their business and do what they're passionate about. I only want to do what I'm passionate about. And the thing that, has been the most rewarding is all of my experiences working with people at end of life. So I started researching what might that be. And I discovered the field of end of life doulas or death doulas, and had never heard of them in all the years that I've been around death and dying, had never heard of this. And so I researched it and realized this is me. This is what I've been doing with hospice patients all these years. But then seeking out the training would give me more tools and knowledge that I could then share with clients and actually create my own business out of this. So I discovered INELDA, International End of Life Doula Association, and in December of 2017, I did my training, and then I started my business in 2018. I did my certification with INELDA. I'm one of those go for it kind of people. If there's a certification to be had, I'm going to have it because I'm an overachiever sometimes. And so I opened my business about 3 years ago and met a group of doulas in the Denver area. And we all decided what we really needed was a way to collaborate with one another. That this is a very difficult field to be in by yourself. It's hard to not have coverage for clients because you can't always be in all places at once. And it's also hard to get out and educate the community about who we are and what we do and why they might need our services alone if we're all trying to be the educator. So the next step sort of seemed naturally to create a collaborative where we could have that support network and share in all of those things. So So those are the two things I'm involved in now: is having my own practice and then having this collaborative group of other doulas.
There's definitely power in numbers when you're trying to get the word out on what this does and what this is for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of education in a new profession.
Definitely. And just also the support of being able to, it's difficult. Not everybody understands the challenges of the type of work that we do. And sometimes we have some very emotional situations that we experience with our clients. And just being able to kind of have a place where we can almost have like a group talking about, a support group talking about our experiences, and maybe ways that, someone else could give us hints on something we could do better with one of our clients, maybe we haven't thought of or don't have experience with, and things like that. So just that support network among us is really helpful as well.
Absolutely. Would you consider that maybe a consultation group as well as
I
support?
consider it's kind of a support debriefing, almost like a debriefing type thing. If that piece of it is needed, then you have that group available to do that. Because I think, sometimes we work with challenging situations. Maybe there's a very dysfunctional situation in a family that we're working with a dying person in a family, and it can be challenging to have one or more family members who maybe aren't in agreement with what the dying person wants, or maybe what their direct caregiver is proposing and wants. And so it can be helpful just to have doulas with a variety of experience, or maybe who've been doing it longer than you've been doing it, and have come across many different situations. So I think just kind of having that, what would you do, or how might you do things differently, or what haven't I thought of, that kind of thing. And then if it really isn't the right fit for you, maybe referring out to another doula too, to be able to say, this, maybe I'm not the best person for this family. And it's not about you, and it's not about the family. It's just not everybody is a good fit for everybody. So perhaps a doula with a different experience, or maybe a different background, might be a better fit. So just knowing that's a helpful thing to do for your clients.
Absolutely. I think that's I think you just got the two best points, in my opinion, on collectives. I am a huge fan of doula collectives for those two reasons. And one is referring out, right? Because everyone has different strengths, different personalities, everything else. And right, we're not a fit for everybody. And
right.
Yeah. And the other one is debriefing, because we do have this advanced concept of vicarious trauma when we're working with. Death is difficult across the board, even if we make it easier. And families it can be challenging to have all those personalities in a difficult situation. Yeah, so I think that those two pieces really help death doulas thrive. So excellent.
I agree, and I don't encounter those difficulties very often, but once in a while, something's really challenging, and I just might need some extra help.
And you have people that you already know and trust to be there. It's amazing.
That I know and trust. And also, for me to be able to take time away, to take care of myself and have some time off. Those are really important things. And if I have ongoing clients, and I can bring in a trusted doula that I know well, and that I can assure my client that if you trust me, I trust this person, and I think this person would be a good fit to cover for me when I can't be here. So that's another really good benefit of the collaborative, is just having trusted resources if you need coverage for whatever reason.
Absolutely. What a great point. We all need self-care. Always, but specifically in this position.
Absolutely.
You
We
deserve
do
it.
need time away. We do need time away to care for ourselves and not work.
And not work.
And not work.
So you
Yeah.
have this, I mean, you kind of got into the good parts of being in a collective. When you're working with clients, do you have any challenges? Do you have challenges finding clients, or what, working side by side with hospice? Are there challenges on that?
I think there are challenges with both of those. So I think the finding clients challenge is just that not enough people know about end of life doulas, and there are still people who don't even understand really what hospice is, or maybe they have a misunderstanding of what hospice is. So one of the areas that we created for the collaborative was a speakers bureau. Because the other thing we know is not everybody's comfortable with getting out and doing community education and public speaking. So for those who like it and are good at it, let's get you out there, because we need a lot of education in our community about this field. We need to deal with the myths of hospice, because there are a lot. And so I always include that. I always include an education piece about hospice, about dispelling the myths of hospice, and then how end of life doulas are not a replacement for hospice, but are a perfect complement to. It's kind of a dovetailing, because doula support is non medical and it fills in those gaps that hospice cannot do. One of those is time. Doulas who work for themselves have the time that clients need, and we aren't bound by Medicare guidelines or companies or hospitals or profit corporations or nonprofit corporations that run hospice to tell us how many clients we have to see a day, and we can only be there 30 minutes and then we got to move on. We don't have those challenges. So we have the time to spend in meeting the needs of our clients and their caregivers. And then the other piece, I would say, is the hospice. A lot of hospices still don't know we exist. A lot of them don't. I would say maybe most of them don't still. And even when they do, I think they don't understand who we are and what we do. And there may seem to be some misunderstanding that we're trying to take away from what hospice provides, and that's not true. We like to work, with them. I have worked in conjunction with hospice staff, and then I'm the doula on the case. And it works out quite nicely when everybody's open to me and what I do and how it doesn't infringe on what they do. And I really become another communicator among all the pieces working to help that dying person, the hospice staff, the family, maybe distant families sometimes who aren't present for the caregiving that's going on, friends, neighbors. I mean, sometimes I just become that conduit that sort of can bring it all together and help everyone sort of be on task with where we are and where we're going and what the dying person has chosen for themselves. So it becomes like an advocacy position as well. And again, I'm there more often than most of the hospice staff in many cases. So I'm just aware of what's happening and can communicate that to everyone that needs to be brought up to date. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, time is the important piece with that.
Time is one of the great benefits that doulas can bring, especially for the caregivers and the loved ones who are doing the caregiving, to be able to offer them respite and, again, self-care, time for them to take care of themselves so that they can keep doing that work of caring for their loved one.
Yeah. I like when I've heard a few times that allows the family members to have their role. and even the hospice workers to keep their roles. The doula comes in and kind of fits that middle ground, so the daughter can be the daughter, not just a caregiver, and the hospice nurse can be the
Absolutely.
hospice nurse and not a social worker and a hospice nurse. So great point.
Absolutely.
So the final question: what hopes do you have for this profession and your business going forward?
I have a lot of hopes around that this will become, maybe not this year, maybe not next, but that this will just become a household knowing, that people will just know that this is that extra end of life help that everyone can use. And I also like to keep in mind too that we're not just there to the point you're making about allowing a daughter to be a daughter, it's also helping. We also help teach caregivers how to give care. And so a lot of it is teaching what we know so that they won't need us at some point. Is a really great possibility. And I think that lends itself, if we talk about community and family centered care, I am all about helping people do what they do better in their communities and within their families. I also am a home funeral guide, and so that's very similar with that. It's just teaching people how to do it for themselves, to bring this caregiving back into families. And it's tough because I think in the U.S. we're so spread out. A lot of families are very spread out, so we may not be there to be able to give care or to be present when our grandparents are dying, that kind of thing. So if we can offer this educational piece to families and communities on how to care give for themselves, I'm all about that. And if it works me out of a field, it works me out of a field. But I'm really passionate about family centered care and community care. And I think doulas can teach a lot of skills to people on how to do maybe something they never saw with their own parents taking care of their parents, that type of thing. So I think it's skills that we can bring back to our communities on how to care give.
What a lovely concept. You're going to teach everyone right out of a job. But
I mean, that may not happen, but it's not a bad goal to have, that we actually improve death care.
Agreed.
In our communities and in our families, because we've lost so much of that. Most people have no experience with death and dying because either it happens in a hospital or it happens in a care facility, or again, they're across the country and they weren't there for that experience. And so I just think that we don't see death and we don't experience death, and I don't think that's to our benefit at all. And I also don't think it helps our grief and bereavement when we don't have any experience with the dying of a loved one. So I think when you can caretake and you're there and you witness that sacred space with that person that you love, I think it changes grief. And so that's part of my wanting to promote people taking this back on in their families, is I think it helps us a lot to have that as a part of our life, because it is. Life and death are on the same thread, I think. So
it's a noble goal.
Yeah.
I'm here for it, Cindy.
Good. Happy to hear that.
On our way out, you did just write and publish last year Mortal's Guide to Dying Well. Do you have a couple sentences about that so people can find your book and what it's about?
It is available on Amazon, and you can do the digital download or you can buy the paperback. And it really kind of covers a lot of what we were talking about today. in a lot more detail, and includes also how we are evolving in funerals and burials and body disposition in this country. So there's a whole section on that too. So yeah, it covers a lot for a small paperback. It's filled with really good information that I hope will help everyone who reads it.
I'm sure there's a lot more than this short conversation, so everyone needs to pick that up and dive in. So I want to thank you, a huge thank you to you, Cindy, for sharing your how and why of becoming an end-of-life doula and so much more. Her info will be on the show notes, so you'll be able to find Cindy online and on Facebook. Again, where can they find you on Facebook?
On Facebook, I am at HeartSpeak, all one word, HeartSpeak End of Life Companioning, or I'm at the Colorado End of Life Collaborative.
Great. And I'll put those links in below so you can find her and learn more about her practice in Colorado. And then finally, all you lovely listeners, if you're enjoying this series of 30 doulas in 30 days, please, it would mean the world to us if you subscribe or hit like or leave a review or any of those. It helps us make more content like this and contribute to the important, very important conversation of ethical end-of-life care. And then jump on over after you've done one of those things, and you can join us on Instagram and TikTok so we can know more about you and why you're interested in this wonderful conversation. That is what we have for today. Cindy, thanks again. And we will see all you in the next episode of Dead Funny, Dead Serious.